Good morning, everyone. Sorry, we're getting just started a couple of minutes late. I am Paige Spratt with Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt. I am the past president of the CCBA. For today's meeting, if you could just please mute yourself, that would be great. And just as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded and will be available on the CCBA website later this week. So for today's presentation, we're going to first hear from Judge Parcher, who's going to discuss updates from District Court, and then we'll hear from Judge Clark, who's going to give updates from Superior Court. We will be taking questions using the chat feature in Zoom. All chat messages will be received by me, and I will make sure that they get to the right judge to get answered. And just as a reminder, please make sure that you are signed up as a CCBA member. We have a couple of really great CLEs coming up. And if there are CLEs that you're interested in receiving, please email me or Lisa Darko. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. Take it away, Judge Parcher.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Again, looking forward to when we can start doing meetings in person. I just want to start out with some quick updates from District Court, just regarding Zoom hearings. I know things are starting to open up around the county and the state, so just to give you an idea of kind of where we're at in our process. We'll definitely have Zoom capabilities similar to what we're using now, at least through the end of the year. We are kind of evaluating now. There may be dockets that we continue to do on Zoom in the future. So that's something that we're continuing to look at. We may start requiring certain matters to be heard in person on certain types of hearings, but we would not implement anything along those lines before September 1st. That's kind of our date for any implementations of requiring folks to come in person. And we'll certainly talk to our stakeholders and attorneys that appear in front of us the most before that happens and give folks a heads up. Just wanted to make a note that under the new GR7, we were required to post our local rules. That comment period is over and our local rules will be submitted to the Supreme Court July 1st. Our rules will go into effect September 1st. And as we discussed, I think I've kind of updated some folks previously. So sorry if this is a repeat, but essentially kind of the bigger changes is the state's going to mandatory electronic filing, and there's fees associated with that. There's still some question about exactly how that's going to be imposed by the state. And then we have some changes to our required hearings under the new CRLJ 3.4 and the Galenas decision. And I just want to kind of comment too, if you did review those or if you take a look at those don't affect how we're operating under our emergency order due to COVID. Those are completely separate from that. And I know there's some confusion that we were beginning to require people to come back in person. Those local court rules are not addressing how we're doing everything now regarding social distancing, masking, anything that we've put into effect just due to COVID. So just to be clear about that. Third, I did want to just kind of mention, so our dockets, we had done some moving around due to COVID. For instance, we're hearing our trials, non-DV trials Mondays and Tuesdays, and we used to always do Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. At this time, our general docket structure is going to remain the same through the end of the year. But we are looking at potentially some kind of bigger changes around that when we're kind of fully open and not doing as much by Zoom and requiring more hearings in person. So just be aware of that in terms of planning going forward. Just a quick update. So we have 2 vacancies right now, both Department 3 and Department 6. Both Judge Zimmerman and Judge Higginson are officially retired as of June 30th. The county has reopened the application process for Department 3. I will just let people know, I think the timeline for that process is a little bit up in the air. Judge Zimmerman just gave that official date to the county. Personally, we're kind of hoping that they speed things up so we can fill both positions as soon as possible, but ultimately it's up to the county counselors kind of what that's going to look like. So we're not exactly sure yet when those vacancies will be filled. Um, just as a reminder for those that practice regularly in doing criminal dockets and district courts, that we no longer have review hearings. Everything is set for trial from the mandatory pre-trial hearing at this time. Change of plea and any other paperwork needs to be filed at least 24 hours in advance, or your matter may not be heard. And the change of pleas need to be cited onto the change of plea docket. The readiness dockets are quite large because of the new structure and how we're doing things. So you cannot expect to have a case come to resolution at the readiness docket. If there is a resolution but paperwork is not done, you should be prepared to have your client waive the right to speedy trial so that it can get set onto a change of plea docket from the readiness docket. I did want to give everyone just a little update on our therapeutic specialty courts. And if you have any general questions, you can always contact Beth Robinson. She's at the county address, so beth.robinson@clark.wa.gov. And certainly for any of your folks in the criminal field that are interested in therapeutic courts, you can contact the assigned prosecutor about the referral process. Right now, I'm presiding over Veterans Court, and we hear that court Monday at 10 a.m. And for all these courts, I really encourage people, if you are curious or have any questions, you can join by Zoom. We're doing all of our courts by Zoom, or come in person to watch as well. Veterans Court is taking both pre-plea felonies and misdemeanors. Our team has done quite a bit of recent training, and we're looking at expanding our eligibility requirements to hopefully get some more veterans in our community that might otherwise not qualify, that may qualify for the program. So be sure to kind of look for those changes and be aware of those when you're asking for referrals to that program. We are in the process of also starting a mentor program. The National Association for Drug Courts has a Justice for Vets division that believes really strongly that you don't have an effective veterans court without a strong mentor program. So we're really working on that. I've done the training personally. They provide some online mentor training. Beth is also doing some training. If you have any interest in, or maybe know folks that might be good for that program, feel free to contact Beth Robinson. Our DUI and SAC courts on Tuesdays. SAC is at 1 p.m. and the DUI court is at 2 p.m. and Judge Slate's presiding over those at this time. We do have a pre-plea program for substance abuse court at this time. Judge Slate had asked that I just update folks that we are getting folks into bed dates pretty quickly through that program. It's a really good option for folks that we're trying to get into treatment as soon as possible. And also that they will work with DUI folks who have mandatory electronic home monitoring to do. They're working on, getting people stabilized, housing, those sorts of things before they have to start that. So there is a little more flexibility if you're within the DUI court for some of those probation and treatment options. And there is quite a bit of housing funding available, including through Oxford Housing, those sorts of things. So just make sure you're reaching out if you have any questions about that on behalf of a client. And then our mental health court, so that's Wednesdays. District court matters are at 1 o'clock and Superior Court matters are at 1:30, and that's being presided over by Judge Osler, and that is a pre-plea program as well. Their team recently did some training as well, and they're looking at some changes regarding eligibility and their phase structure. So just be kind of looking for more updates and changes. We anticipate some additional trainings, especially both for the DUI court, SAC court, and mental health court for our community members and attorneys to just kind of update on any changes that are being made to those programs. Mental health court's really focusing a lot right now on how to get assessments done more quickly for folks in custody so that we can get them out and in treatment more quickly. And again, Judge Osler just wants to remind you that she will keep everyone apprised of any training changes. There is some additional funding out of the legislation, kind of in light of the Blake decision, that is coming directly to therapeutic specialty courts. That's kind of exciting. We don't know exactly how that's going to be funded yet, but there might be some additional money to help expand and provide some extra services for our folks. I want to give you a brief probation pretrial update, just so folks are aware that have clients, criminal clients on probation. We are transitioning from using Sentinel to 2Watch monitoring for a lot of our probation services, including electronic home monitoring. They also provide UAs and BAs, so we wouldn't have to do everyone through Lifeline. They set up an office. They are within walking distance of the courthouse now, and most of those services are going to be less expensive for our clients and defendants. So that's a good thing. We have now implemented the GPS with victim notification monitoring pursuant to the Tiffany Hill legislation. We're the first county in the state to get that up and going. So still, kind of working through how that looks practically speaking when it's imposed, but we do have that technology and that capability at this time. And then my only other kind of update, I just wanted to touch base on some diversity and equity issues. Both benches, Judge Clark and I were both in trainings a couple of weeks ago. So all the judges, including our administrator for district court, superior court, and juvenile court, have started a four-part training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they're each 2 hour training. So we have 3 additional trainings coming up, and it's put on by Books Not Bars through the Oregon Youth Program. And that stands for Youth Organized and United to Help. So we're excited that our benches are doing that together. And then I also just wanted to remind you, I think most of you probably got the flyer from the CCBA for the upcoming training for our Clark County community. So is that showing, Paige? Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you haven't seen that flyer, had a chance to look at it, make sure that you get on the CCBA website. It is there and you can register there. It's a really great program that's sponsored by District Court, by the Bar Association, and support the Prosecuting Attorney's Office Action Reform Committee, the VLP, Clark County Volunteer Lawyers Program, Navigate Law Group, and Northwest Justice Project, as well as Clark County and YWCA. So really encourage folks, it's open to anyone in our legal community. And that's all I have for now, unless there's any questions. It looks like speedy waivers to be. Okay, so it looks like, unless there's a question about approved telephonically on speedy waivers, yeah, we would allow that. I mean, we still have to make the knowing intelligently and voluntarily made. So we don't necessarily require a written signature and waiver of right to speedy trial, so long as we have something else either on the record or from the attorney. Right, and I will stick around in case after Judge Clark anybody thinks of any other district court questions.
Great, thank you so much, Judge Parcher. And so if you do have questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat. You can send them to me or directly to the judge. And if you haven't already, please enter your name and bar number into the Google spreadsheet. The link is in the comments. I will be putting it there again momentarily, so you can see it, just in case you logged in a couple of minutes late. So now to give us an update from Superior Court, here is Judge Clark.
Thank you. It's kind of interesting to do an update since I haven't been the judge on the previous ones. I don't think that the changes are as many as we've seen maybe in the past months. We're still operating under our last emergency order, which was entered May 4th and is available on the Superior Court website if you have questions about that. Unlawful detainer docket at this time is intended, I believe, to end at June 30th, although I would point out that Seattle's already extended through September 30th. So we are intending to have one dedicated Friday docket for unlawful detainer. Not sure if it'll be just one judge or if it'll be rotating amongst us, but we anticipate when this ends that there will be a bit of a deluge of evictions coming forward. Also, if you're doing those or representing tenants, you might want to familiarize yourself with some of the programs available to them and some of the funding available. And I think that information is also available on our website. Probably the biggest thing right now for Superior Court is trying to process the backload of jury trials to get both civil and criminal cases out. And the challenge, of course, has been that we only have the ability really for 2, maybe 3 trials to go out per week, and in custody criminal defendants take priority on those. I did my first trial doing a jury selection out at the fairgrounds at the event center a couple of weeks ago, and was surprised that it really functioned very smoothly. It was a little bit like addressing a graduating class or something. You've got about 40 jurors spread out in front of you 6 feet apart on very uncomfortable looking folding chairs, but uh, they did an amazing job putting that together for us to use. Unfortunately, we will be losing that space fairly quickly. In the interim, we're intending to use the site of the Dragonfly Cafe across the street to do larger jury selections, and that's over in the Public Service Center. It looks like we may very soon be able to go to a reduced social distancing from 6 feet to 3 feet. And the exciting thing about that is if we do go there, then we will be able to have 4 trials, possibly 5, go out in a week, because it expands the number of courtrooms that we have available to us. So I'm really happy to report that that appears to be on the horizon, although we don't know how soon. We've had staff do all the measuring and figuring out the capacity for each courtroom. And as I say, I think that will significantly improve things. The concern is that on the criminal side, we have cases that some 2017, 18 case numbers, and the delays the last year and a half, of course, have made it such that we have a number of old cases that need to be resolved. So jurors will continue to be required to wear masks during selection process. Our court rule says that participants in the trial can remove their masks when they're speaking or participating in the events. And I have found that if I don't remove my mask, nobody hears me, and I get that complaint pretty constantly. So also, I'm kind of in the bank teller cage these days with multiple layers of plexiglass around me. So we're hoping that once we reduce a jury to the panel plus the alternates, that we will be able to verify vaccination status. And if we have a completely vaccinated jury, they may not have to wear masks during trial, which would also, I think, be a significant improvement kind of for morale amongst the jury. The backlog is really quite significant on both criminal and civil cases. I've been working with my civil cases to make sure we get them out during civil weeks so they have priority, especially ones where there are issues scheduling expert witnesses and that type of thing. Our specialty courts have continued to function pretty much in the same manner. The only big change regarding specialty courts is our juvenile recovery court is being phased out in September of this year, primarily because the number of participants had shrunk as we had more alternatives that were available for juveniles and more services that were really more appropriate to their needs. So that program will be phased out as the remaining participants complete the process. Ex parte will continue as is for the foreseeable future. We anticipate, making some changes as district court does. Part of the issue, I think, is really developing an idea of what parts of Zoom and of the COVID protocols that it makes sense to keep going forward. And I would invite you to, if there's some particular thing we're doing right now that you think is great, to give us that feedback. We notice a lot of good things from our COVID protocols and from Zoom. I think one of my favorite things is we have a lot of criminal defendants that typically had to take a day off work and sit in court for an arraignment. And now frequently on out of custody arraignments, I see people sitting in their car at work for the 10 minutes or so that they need to be in front of the court, and then they're able to get back to work. So we feel like that's a lot more productive. Again, I think you all know there's some great things about Zoom, and I think, there's a few horrible things about Zoom. I'm sure every one of the judges could tell you, their favorite story about what's happened on Zoom. I think the day that I had a gentleman that did not appear to be wearing any clothes was kind of my favorite. I don't think I ever thought I would have to tell someone, sir, please turn off your camera and get up and put on enough clothing that is appropriate to appear in court. And apparently, he was not on that docket and didn't comply, so we kicked him out of the courtroom. And I was happy to say that I didn't issue any warrants that day. So apparently he was just observing and decided that he didn't need to wear clothing to do that. Anyway, the Zoom stories kind of abound. Most of the time, things have gone very well. I think masks are also interesting because sometimes it's hard to hear what people say. After one hearing with an elderly lady that was trying to get custody of her grandchildren, I thought I didn't hear her correctly when she said she was sweating like a whore in church, but apparently she did actually say that. My assistant pointed that out to me, and again, words you didn't think you'd ever hear in court. The other thing I would bring out is the Superior Court is looking for attorneys to sign up to be on the emergency minor guardianship, the minor guardianship cases, to represent parents. Right now, we only have 2 lawyers, and I think a lot of people may have some concerns or think they're not qualified to do that. But those people that are interested, please submit your interest to Superior Court. There are some pretty good bench materials that we can make available to you in forms, and we're considering trying to put together a training so that people would feel more comfortable with the concept, but we are seeing a pretty substantial need for attorneys for parents in those cases. So if you're willing to sign up, we would love to have you. I think the last big thing I would bring up is apparently Liberty is finished at the end of the year, that the clerk's office is intending to transfer over to on-base, and I think there's some concerns as to maybe the smooth transition of that. I would invite you to talk to the clerk's office and Mr. Weber to see what kind of training they'll give you. On-base is supposed to be roughly equivalent to Liberty. As you know, initially the clerk's office decided to stay with Liberty, and it eventually transitioned to on-base rather than going with the document management system that comes with Odyssey. And so we're a little nervous as a bench, I think, as to how smoothly this transition will go and what it means for attorneys as far as electronic filing and that type of thing. But our understanding is at the end of the year, Liberty is done. So there will have to be a transition over to the on-base system, and that really affects attorneys in the community as far as electronic filing and access to court files electronically. The final thing, we have several new judicial officers in the last year. I'm very excited to report that with the appointment of Judge Ratsinas, 5 of the 11 judges are now women, and 9 of 15 of our overall judicial officers in Superior Court are women. Judge Sheldrick took over the existing caseload, criminal civil arena. Judge Banfield went immediately to family law, and when Judge Vanderwood came back up to the main courthouse, and she'll be there for that assignment for 3 years, primarily. Well, we all rotate through the family law annex, but also because coming from the prosecutor's office, it makes the conflict level a little bit easier. Judge Ratsinas will be taking over Judge Donkey's caseload, which will be the guardianship judge as well as a criminal rotation or a criminal caseload. She will not have an ordinary civil caseload because she will have the responsibilities of the guardianship judge. That means that standard, I guess, straightforward guardianship and probate orders can still go through ex parte to the ex parte judge, but anything, shall we say, less than routine, the ex parte judge will still handle things like appointment of the personal representative, admitting the will into probate, that type of thing, and appointment of a guardian ad litem on an initial filing of the guardianship, but orders after that would go through the guardianship judge. So I guess important to me was with the appointment of Judge Ratsinas, the Oregon Ducks now lead. We have 4 of the 11 judges, as opposed to the Huskies only have 3 of 11. And everybody else is kind of sprinkled through other schools. So I welcome any questions you have, and I'll do the best I can to answer them.
Judge Clark, we have one question that came in, and it is, has Superior Court determined when they will return to dismissal of non-parental custody cases, which is currently suspended under an emergency order issued February 22nd?
And we have not.
Okay.
That'll be basically kind of the cleanup order and when that comes out.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions on my end, and we are right up at the 12:30 hour. So thank you so much today for your time, and please don't forget to sign up for CLE credit. Judge Parcher and Judge Clark, we really appreciate these updates. It's been hugely beneficial, and we really appreciate you all taking the time today. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Lisa Darko, and I think we're gonna shut it down. So everyone have a great Wednesday. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.